But more after this message. By now, I'm sure you, our dear listeners, are all very familiar with Home Field Apparel. They're the purveyors of some excellent collegiate apparel. The boys over on the main pod always go nuts for their football and basketball drops. But Home Field is also a longtime supporter of this podcast. Last year, Home Field launched their first season of Speed with Hendrick, Little 500, Aero McLaren, and Indy 500 collections, with the Indy 500 collection being a particular favorite of mine. Well, they're back for another year of Season of Speed with a new Hendrick Motorsports collection with neat Rainbow Warriors, Jeff Gordon, and City Chevrolet merch, and a 3-car collection devoted to Raising Hell and Praising Dale, both of which are already available. Now, with the obligatory joke out of the way, there's also a new Little 500 and Indianapolis Motor Speedway collection for all of those who celebrate the month of May. So head on over to homefieldapparel.com and be sure to use code VLV25 to save 15% off of your first order. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Chicanery. We are your hosts. I'm Danny, and of course joined by JT.
Hello again.
And we're back. Yes, so soon. Tired of us yet? Me too. We're back to chat about the Detroit Grand Prix. Of course, it's effectively my home Grand Prix, and plays host to IMSA and IndyCar every year. Kind of as per usual, I think a fair bit to kind of dig into. Some fun series stuff, some just kind of goofy shit. So just kind of the whole spectrum. So, I guess with that, let's get going. And to start a little bit of follow up from the last episode, functionally, there was quite a bit of chatter about crumbing BOP, blah 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 blah. IMSA was saying that they were going to manually adjust BOP because it just wasn't working, and well, they did. So in GTP, it was BMW and Porsche that were, I say, the main offenders, quote unquote. And it was both increase in weight and power reductions. And to that end, Cadillac and Acura, which had been sort of the class laggards, if you will, got more power, less weight. So, theory should make for closer racing, or at the very least, it shouldn't be quite so easy for BMW and Porsche to run away with it as they kind of have been doing all year so far. But on the topic of BOP, in GTD Pro, the Lamborghini was given a weight reduction of about 20 kilos, 44 pounds. And the Ferrari was given about an 8% hit in power. So things to kind of keep an eye on, especially once we get particularly and kind of dig into the IMSA segment of today's episode. But now when I start talking about when I mentioned goofy shit at the top, here is thing numero uno. I'm gonna have to sit down and write an episode about this. I've been kind of slacking on F1 because I'm just busy and tired and writing F1 notes. I cannot begin to tell you guys just how miserable it is to do that. But to make a long story short, Lance Stroll is out for a bit. Unclear how long. Hand injury. Rumors are swirling that he might have re-aggravated the hand that he fucked up in a biking accident a couple years ago now. Some say that he punched something in the garage area, Aston Martin team garage at the Spanish Grand Prix at Catalonia. Reports conflicting, but either way, hand fucked up. He's out for a bit. But this has created a bit, and on paper, this created a bit of a problem because, well, all of the drivers at Aston Martin, in theory, had to pull from are like, nah, dog, I'm busy. Leave me alone. But enter Felipe Drugovich, who has all but said that he would abandon Le Mans commitment to go tool around in 14th place at the Canadian Grand Prix. And my question is fucking why?
I don't know. I guess he still thinks he's gonna get a Formula One seat, but again, I feel like that ship has sailed like months ago, maybe even a whole year ago. Not gonna happen, but I don't know. He thinks so. I think he lives in a different reality than the rest of us.
I would be inclined to agree because, I mean, you and I have been talking about Felipe Drugovich and his F1 prospects being over. We've been talking about that for about as long as this show has existed, which we're going on a couple of years at this point, which is fucking bananas. But at any rate, so long as Lawrence owns the team, Lance pretty much has a guaranteed spot. And given that Alonso refuses to do the respectable thing and retire, he's going to be staying put, I figure, for probably himself at least the next 2 to 3 years, especially given that he himself said that he signed a long-term deal with the team, which, I mean, nobody talks about contract lengths anymore. But from everything I've heard suggests that was about a 4-year deal, and that was signed, was that last year or the year before? I can't remember. But either way, another 2 or 3 years. Like, I don't get it. And here's the other bit that actually is a little bit perplexing to me. I don't know if he thinks this is going to open the door to a seat, but it's worth noting that, I mean, think about it. All this time, Aston Martin could have loaned him out to Williams or, somewhere else, Alpine. And nobody's bit. So clearly nobody else on the grid thinks he's worth anything to try and wrestle him away. So I guess my question is just like, what is his plan here?
I don't think he has one.
That's probably true. And also just the fucking madness is like, you have the opportunity to fucking go for glory in a works outfit at Le Mans. And again, you would choose to be at Montreal, probably in the wet because it rains most years. And again, be poodling around in fucking, 14th or something. Because this year's Aston Martin, at least in its current guise, it's just not certainly not a regular point scorer. You need a whole shitload of luck for this car to score points. So
also, it'd be like a pretty good achievement if he actually was able to do well. Like if Cadillac managed to get like a podium, or at least Action Express, like the Action Express wheel and entry, because Cadillac has multiple entries. It'd be a pretty good achievement for him at his age to be able to say that he got a podium or a good result at Le Mans for him being like, I don't know how old he is, but like he's like 20 something, maybe like 24, 25. Like that's pretty good. And that would probably also help him with any other like future career stuff because that looks good. That, hey, you got a freaking podium or a top 10 result at Le Mans at only like a pretty young age.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I guess just the kind of the moral of the story is I just don't fucking get it. I feel like there's so much more to gain by doing Le Mans than there is by doing the Canadian Grand Prix. And also thinking about this in the future, say he does it. Say he does Canada instead of Le Mans. Is anybody gonna offer him basically a WEC, IMSA drive at a Crown Jewel event ever again?
I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, because the Canadian Grand Prix is just a regular ass freaking race. It's not even like it's a marquee race. It's just a regular race on the fucking Formula One schedule, and you're choosing that over a marquee race. So I wouldn't, especially it's like, okay, you're just gonna bail. It's like I'll give it to somebody else who won't do that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, you have the potential to be, burning, it's not even just burning a bridge with Cadillac or just burning a big bridge with General Motors. It's burning a bridge with a whole series. Basically, unless he gets strapped in the Aston Martin hypercar, I can't see anybody wanting to.
I wouldn't count on that happening either, because even though like he's with Aston Martin has other people that they probably would choose over him, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. And I say burning a bridge with a GM, given that the Cadillac entry in Formula One, that actually has the potential to be actually quite challenging for him, even in F1. Truth be told. But yeah, this is so fucking goofy. And I can't even begin to describe just the sheer levels of unseriousness that one has to possess to go, Le Mans? Nah, we'll do Canadian Grand Prix instead. Like, Jesus Christ. But moving on, it is it is a day that ends in Y, so that means Honda is gnashing its teeth angrily about IndyCar again. So, Honda has apparently expressed some concerns that they have with the series as of currently. And I guess before I go any further, just to kind of catch up folks, before they were kind of grumpy about frankly, kind of the botched rollout of the hybrid, plus the fact the cars are ancient, because they are, and had hinted that if there wasn't some change, that they might bounce and leave the series. Well, IndyCar introduced the hybrids, which hasn't quite gone according to plan. And so now Honda is hinting that they might well leave the series. And so some of the concerns, the grievances included was high cost to participate in the series as an engine manufacturer, which, I mean, no shit, Sherlock. And truth be told, this was a concern that they had pre-hybrid, so surely that's only gotten worse with the introduction of hybrid. As well as conflict of interest with Penske's ownership of the series. And I think that that's kind of a big one. This is something that fans have been talking about for quite some time. And this is chatter that has been renewed with, functionally two cheating scandals in, as many seasons. But it's wild that one of the engine manufacturers, and arguably the dominant engine manufacturer right now, is like going, what the fuck is up with that? So I'd be curious to take your to gather your thoughts about this.
I mean, I guess I get them being upset about the cost, I guess, but then at the same time, it's like, it's the year 2025. Like, it's not cheap to run in motorsports, whether it's your own program or you're an engine supplier or whatever, you're supplying parts. It's just not cheap, and it hasn't been cheap for a while. Like, especially not cheap, and it's not going to get any cheaper, I don't think, at least given the current economic climate we live in. Okay, like it's just, that's just what it is, unfortunately. So like there's that. I understand the complaints, but they knew damn well what they were signing up for. They knew exactly what the fuck was going on. So some of that's like, I don't know what to say. As far as it goes for like the conflict interest thing with Penske, I mean, that's been a problem for a while, I would say, ever since Penske like bought the series, or back in like 2019, 2020. So, I mean, again, it's been a problem. So, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of like morbidly curious to see what would happen if Honda did leave. I mean, I'm sure it'd be, I don't know, could be the coup de grace for IndyCar finally, even though IndyCar's survived the split and everything else drastic that has happened to it, and still modern day 2025, it's still alive somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. Because you had um um posted on Twitter a few days ago when this came out, basically with this, basically spell the end for the IndyCar series. And I think that this would be genuinely kind of catastrophic. If Honda just said, yeah, bye. Despite the fact that Honda waffles in just about every other fucking series that they participate in, they have been remarkably consistent in their commitment to IndyCar over the last, 20 some odd years. And so to have them just go, okay, later, yeah, that'd be very bad. I would be, you know, I don't know. Maybe it's just because it's kind of front of mind. I'd be curious to know why the, potential conflicts of interest, why that's just now a problem. Um, maybe it's been something that's been on their radar for a while, but again, with all of the nonsense surrounding the Indy 500,
And I feel like IndyCar will somehow still survive all of this. Because, I mean, IndyCar very much reminds me of like a deer that's been struck by a car and is on the side of the road, like flailing around on the brink of death, but somehow still gets saved and rehabilitated.
for better and worse, that analogy is actually pretty apt. Yeah, that's not an undue analogy there. But yeah, but my question is who, like, if Honda leaves and it creates a bit of a kind of, I guess, a vacuum, because I mean it would create definitely a competitiveness vacuum because Honda has been the dominant engine supplier for kind of a while now. Who would come in? Would Chevy really want to sit here and supply all of the cars?
I don't know. I don't know if anybody would come in. I don't know. I feel like they might look at the state of the series and be like, it's not worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, it's been basically a functional duopoly for, well, at this point, more than 10 years because Lotus fucked off in, what was that, 2013? 2012? When Lotus dipped. Um, so, Yeah, it's just been Honda and Chevy. And again, I'm not sure if Chevy wants to stump up the cash to supply everybody. And then as much shit as the IndyCar series gets for, being, quotes, a spec series, even though that's not quite true. It really would be at that point. But yeah, interesting. Makes me long for the days of like Ilmore and Toyota and everybody else. But at any rate, and more IndyCar stuff, and this news dropped not too long after we recorded the last batch of episodes. But IndyCar is introducing an independent officiating board. Say that 5 times fast. For 2026. The whole idea is that it's supposed to exist separately from sanctioning bodies, from with input from the teams and manufacturers, though it will be Penske funded. I suspect the idea is to cut down on the just sheer amount of bullshit that we've had lately, ostensibly.
I guess. I mean, kind of just good for them, I guess. I mean, hopefully it changes something. I mean, hopefully it appeases people who are like, yeah, Penske owning the series is like causing, again, like the conflict of interest thing. Hopefully that helps with some of it. I mean, I don't think it'll fully like satiate people just because Penske still runs a team and they own the series, so that's always going to be an issue for people, which, I mean, sure, you could definitely argue that there's issues with people owning a racing series and also participating in said racing series, because it's an issue with IndyCar, it's an issue in IMSA, even with Action Express Racing, which is owned by like, or has connections to like the France family. So, I mean, hopefully it changes something for the positive.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see. Because it's IndyCar, I figure out they'll find a way to botch this too, at least initially. Because that seems to be very much the MO of the series. Fuck it up spectacularly from the jump, and then spend lots of time figuring out how to fix it. And make it not shit. But I guess we'll see. And in some kind of future scheduling news, it's looking like there's going to be some conflict between Sebring and Qatar next year, which is curious for, 2 series that talk about working and doing everything hand in hand, and that's been the whole MO with like regs and BOP and a million and one other things. This strikes me as kind of curious that this has happened.
I mean, it's like allegedly, so like the IMSA schedule's been released. I'm pretty sure it got released a while ago for next year, but the Qatar, or at least for WEC, that schedule, WEC's 2026 schedule hasn't been released yet, so don't know when Qatar is going to happen. I mean, I don't think I would be really shocked, honestly, if they didn't fix that conflict, simply because you'd have so many hypercar and GTP teams. It would just be like completely fucked and shit out of luck if that conflict happened. Like, to the point where I feel like if they don't realize it on their own and fix it, you probably will have a lot of teams be in uproar about it to the point where they would fix it. I don't see that not happening, so I'm not too worried about it yet.
Yeah, I mean, and yes, I guess it is fair enough. It is worth noting that it is still largely conjecture at the moment. However, we've seen so often that, especially when talking about this kind of nitty gritty, almost, as I like to say, kind of procedural stuff. Typically, where there's smoke, there's fire. And so the fact that this is even a potential question mark at all, I find mildly concerning, and very dumb. But
I mean, it's possible it happened since like this year we have like there's like freaking there's an IndyCar race and a NASCAR race and a Formula One race all on the same weekend as Le Mans, which like personally I feel like there shouldn't be any races happening on the same weekend as Le Mans. It should just be Le Mans, especially if like you have people who want to participate in Le Mans who also race in other series. But what do I know? I don't do the scheduling.
yeah, and I understand it's tough. You can't plan for, if you want to have like a series that runs semi-regularly throughout the course of its season. I understand that you can't necessarily account for absolutely everything because, I mean, it's, track time, it's TV slots, there are lots of things to consider. I totally get that. But yes, having these, functionally trying to compete with marquee races is very stupid.
Yeah, because you're gonna have people. Here's I already see it now. I see it now. What's gonna happen if you're gonna have people for both probably the IndyCar race, which IndyCar is at Gateway, I'm pretty sure, and then NASCAR's at Mexico City, I think. You're gonna have these races. They're gonna happen, and the viewership is gonna be low. And the reason why the viewership is gonna be low is because it's taking place at a time where most people are not tuned into it. They're watching again the 24 hours of Le Mans, even though Le Mans technically, because it's 24 hours, you don't necessarily sit down and watch the whole thing in continuation. You can tune in and tune out of it depending on what's going on. But the viewership's going to be low because it's clashing again with the pretty significant race, and the people are going to be like, oh, at least for the NASCAR side, people are going to be like, well, this is why they should have never done this race because the viewership sucked. Of course it sucked because it ran right up against one of the biggest races on the planet. People are not going to be watching NASCAR at Mexico City, no matter how interesting you may think that is. I mean, sure, I'm glad they're going, but again, it's on a poorly timed weekend. Same with IndyCar because viewership with IndyCar has been a long-standing discussion since, as far as I can remember, since I've been watching this fucking series. And people are going to be like, okay, the viewership sucks at Gateway, so that means that's why IndyCar shouldn't keep going to like more ovals or whatever, because you have like the two groups of the IndyCar fandom where it's people like, no, we should go to like, no, IndyCar should stick with their current schedule and it's fine with where it is, and the group that's like, no, IndyCar needs to go to more ovals on their schedule, and they're constantly at war with each other. And you're going to have people like, yeah, the viewership sucked at Gateway. Gateway's an oval, therefore they shouldn't bother going to more ovals, even though, again, the elephant in the room is it's on the same weekend as Le Mans. So the viewership is going to be bad. I'm just letting people know that right now. The viewership for these races are not going to be good because you have other shit going on.
Yep, exactly. And, and it's a bummer. Because you're right. I mean, I've been watching IndyCar really since the days of the split. And that was always the thing was, especially at certain races, it was, viewership. Talking about viewership has been a thing for 25 fucking years at this point, to a greater or lesser degree. And so, yeah, I mean, Gateway is basically viewership's going to be ass. And then, everybody's going to point the finger at, Fox. And for a change, it won't really be their fault as such. It's like, okay, well, no, it's Le Mans, and the scenes on Twitter for NASCAR when, yes, the viewership for Mexico City is inevitably hot garbage. Because, again, it's Le Mans. I think it's super cool that they're doing this. Let me be clear. And I'm actually kind of frustrated that it does conflict with Le Mans. Because I am one of the lunatics that will probably be up for the entire 24 hours of Le Mans.
I mean, I'm sure other people do it. Other people do it too, especially if you have nothing going on the weekend, then sure, why not? But it's like, you're just gonna have a bunch of like people making these like straw man red herring arguments for why NASCAR shouldn't go back to Mexico City because again the viewership sucked, even though everybody should know right now that the viewership isn't going to be good. So like you can just forget about it, let it go.
Yeah, but yes, but this is a kind of, I guess, a windy way to say is that it'll be kind of a similar issue potentially with um with it'll be potentially a similar issue if there ends up being a clash with Qatar and Sebring. Because certainly I don't know about you, but at least based on the last couple of years, I would skip Qatar for Sebring.
I would too. Qatar is not that great. Qatar is not even a good track. One, it's not a good track, period. And it's also not a good track for a season opener either. Like, at least for this year, I thought it was very lackluster for a season opener, if you could even call it that. It's just not. It's a no for me, a chop.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, well, we spent how long did we spend talking about how mid Qatar was in that episode? A significant amount of time, actually. So no, I completely agree. It's like for what is basically the longest race on the calendar outside of Le Mans. It's like this race sure does fucking blow. But at any rate, with all of that out of the way, let's actually get into the actual race weekend. So first, we're gonna start this off with the Chevrolet Sports Car Classic, which is, I'm gonna be honest, is actually kind of a sick name for a race. But at any rate, getting into a quali for the IMSA race, we had a whole bunch of folks that, due to red flags, ended up losing their fastest qualifying times. The number 7 Porsche Penske, both the Wayne Taylor Cadillacs, one of the Corvettes, and the Pfaff Lamborghini all got a bit all got screwed there. And GTD Pro quali would actually get red flagged with about 5 or so minutes left due to the Dragon Speed Ferrari spinning and getting in the tire barriers at turn 4. Which that car would then receive a penalty of losing the 2 fastest laps for causing a red flag during qualifying. But then it didn't really fucking matter anyway, because the checkered would come out right as the session was resumed. So, nobody really set a lap anyway. Which is, well, you said it here in sort of the note annotation, but yeah, IMSA should probably look at tweaking their qualifying procedure, because it feels like this happens more often than it should.
I feel like it's happened like literally every race. Every single race we've had this season has had some issue where, okay, you have people go out, they're out on the track for like a couple of laps, maybe 2 or 3 laps, okay, and they're not even actually, and if you're out there like at first, you're not really actually doing a legit lap. You're usually on an out lap. You're not actually going to set a time, and then something happens, somebody bends it or whatever, or a car stops, and then the session gets red flagged, and while the session is red flagged, the timer still is going, and then once they get everything sorted out, clean up whatever happened on track, and then people go back out, there's only usually like 5 minutes left, which is, okay, really like 5 minutes. You use most of that time to, again, warm up your tires, and then set a lap time. Really, you only have like a couple laps, which is like, that usually doesn't work. Okay, I don't think that's I just don't think that's viable. I think we need to do something different.
Yeah, I would honestly, I'd be inclined to agree. It's yeah, it's all a bit messy and it's unorganized at absolute best. And yeah, it's just a bit dumb at worst. So I don't. Well, in theory, just pa- you know, I don't know,
Just
pausing the
pause the
timer,
time,
maybe. Yeah, if that's the
either
way to
pause it
go.
or make it longer.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. If I know, probably especially on street circuits, given that some of them have curfews and the like. I understand that there's not all the time in the world.
And I guess it might be
Uh,
an issue with like if you have like because at least this weekend IMSA was sharing the track with IndyCar and like
mhm.
Indy Next and all that shit. So obviously you don't have all the time in the day because if you are sharing the track with other series, you are going to be more limited on time, I suppose, from that like that aspect. You can't take all day because well other people have to use the track too. But for some tracks, if IMSA is the only series, then I don't know. They need to like adjust the time, adjust the entire schedule. If it's just IMSA sanctioned series, I think they could do that.
Yep, I would be inclined to agree. But but um but yeah, it's just like it's just a goofy thing. And somebody should probably look into how exactly you fix that. But speaking of shenanigans, the banana boat Porsche would go for a spin in turn 3, but would all's well that ends well. Ditto the 23, the Valkyrie, which would run wide in T1. Um, there would be quite a bit of back and forth between the 25 BMW and the numbers, which had Vanderland, and the 60 Acura with Blomqvist, which would go back and forth for at least P2 on the grid. But ultimately, it would be a Meyer-Shank Racing lockout for the front row of the GTP grid, which would bring an end to the qualifying streak that BMW had been on. So maybe BOP work after all? Question mark. Um,
Maybe.
um, but moving on into the race itself. Um, good race or not?
I mean, I say it was an okay race. It was an okay race.
Um, I would say okay, and I would say better than
It was a lot cleaner than last year was.
yes. Yeah, I was gonna say it was certainly a better race, a much cleaner race than last year. Which again, having trying not to cave to recency bias, and also the fact that ultra chaotic races tend to irritate me a bit. Trying not to have that push this year's edition into good territory. Um, but yeah, but certainly better than last year, which that's about all you can ask for. Um, but we would get a full course yellow, our first full course yellow for debris on the track. With the number 4 Corvette making contact, trying to get around the number 77 AO Racing Porsche. And yes, you put in your notes that it's pretty much the missing taillights is like the exact same damage from Daytona, although they taped it up this time, which I thought was funny. Um, And the 77 Porsche would be at the scene of the crime yet again, but this time it would be the number 14 Vassar Sullivan Lexus that would have a coming together with the Porsche ultimately pointing backwards. The 14 was penalized for that. Now, interestingly enough, we talk about Daytona Reduxes. Paul Miller is at it again. Although interestingly enough, this was an inter-team scrap with the one in the 48. So I'd be interested to know how that meeting went yesterday morning. But yeah, there would be a bit of contact between those two cars. And the Dragon Speed Ferrari also continues to make a bit of a nuisance of itself, going off in turn 3, which, well, granted, that's one turn earlier than before, but kind of in the general vicinity of the fuck up it had in quali. But it would keep going, to be fair, so no full course yellow there. By the way, and actually, it's funny. I meant to, when the race was on, I actually meant to message you about this because the 65 Mustang got a mechanical black flag, but I don't remember ever seeing what for.
I don't think there was any explanation for it because I was looking at timing and scoring, and I had like the race control messages, and it just said it was like the car was black flagged. It just said a mechanical black flag, so I don't know what that means.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, fair enough. Sometimes it'll get explained, either, through broadcast or a little bit later. There'll be something for why. Because there were lots of mechanical black flags with the fucking tire pressure sensors like at Daytona. So just idly curious. But at any rate, Paul Miller's day would continue to be an eventful one, with the number 1 going off in T1 before getting to the pit lane, which would then also get a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane, which is like woof. Well, there are a few things that are inevitable: death, taxes, and the BMW GTP program making just the absolute dumbest, unforced operational errors. And this was no different. The 25 will get a drive-through for having team personnel over the wall before the car was stopped. Which, that's just rookie shit. Come on, guys. I'm gonna be honest. I don't understand how you root for this team week in and week out, because I'd ended it all by now.
I mean, I don't know either. I just think it's some hope. Maybe it's delusion, part hope, part delusion that maybe for once they will actually do something smart and not screw it up. But I don't know.
You're better than I am, because I would have given up a really long time ago, especially with just the shit like this. Like I said, if it is an unforced error, particularly in the pits, for this team to make, chances are they have made it at some point. And that is just bananas to me. That it's like every episode we sit and there's, I don't know, at this point I'm ready to dedicate like a segment to just what fuck up has the GTP team made this race. Actually, that's a thought. Anyway, yeah, so I don't fucking know. But at any rate, while the GTP team is off doing dumb shit, Paul Miller is in the T1 runoff. Well, it would be a few more times throughout the course of this event. So So much for that. But interestingly enough, this wasn't the end of the Ballad of Paul Miller Racing in Detroit. They found another American GTD car to sit and go to war with. Not the Corvettes this time, but a Mustang. It was a number 65. And the number 48 like drove into the side of the number 65 Mustang. While the Mustang itself was actually having a scrap with the Faf Lamborghini going into 3. Now, it is worth noting that the 48 was penalized for this incident. I think that the competition directors for Paul Miller, I think, are going to just IMSA is just going to have them executed by way of 12th century samurai at the rate that they've been going. But the 48 was penalized. Both cars were, frankly, a fucking mess. With the Mustang pitting to repair some of the damage, the 48 not for reasons. We would get a full course yellow because there was just shit all over the track. There was no way you couldn't have a full course yellow. I just I don't know. They're just the Paul Miller BMWs just seem to have some magnetic attraction to the American GTD Pro cars that is unclear to me.
I mean, I don't know. They just don't like them for whatever reason. I don't know. Paul Miller Racing has been moving. They've been moving crazy ever since they expanded to 2 entries.
Oh, yeah, it's kind of nuts. It's like if I had a nickel for every time that Paul Miller terrorized another basically class entry, I would only have a few nickels. But it's really odd that this continues to be a thing. But at any rate, yeah, the 14 Vassar Sullivan Lexus would get penalized for also having a crew member over the wall too soon, which is again, is it fucking amateur hour around here? Then the number 4 Corvette would have some kind of issue. The car was dead stick for a minute and then would get back up to speed. Then we would have more BMW violence, but this time in GTP, with the 24 implanting its big sniffers into the butt of the number 6 Porsche Penske, which actually did more damage to the BMW than it did the Porsche, even despite the fact that the contact was pretty low speed, all things considered. But it was sort of as we get to the dying breaths of this race, we would have the battles for GTD Pro and GTP would hot up a bit, with the number 10 Cadillac and the 7 Porsche Penske arguing, with the Porsche Penske coming off the worst out of that, with both the 10 and the 93 getting passed. And this would actually put the number 7 within the clutches of the BMWs. Although ultimately they would, the number 7 would survive. BOP, maybe? Possibly. And there was actually some damage with the 10 and the 10 Cadillac and the 7 Porsche, though Race Control just decided it's fine. And the number 4 Corvette and the number 77 started fighting again. Enough to Race Control telling both of them to fuck off. But with about 3 minutes left on the clock, the number 93 would put a move on the 10 Cadillac and make it stick. And the number 10 tried to have a run back, but it just didn't work. The 65 Mustang would go off in the runoff, basically on I think it was like the second to last lap or something. And despite all of this, the Corvette and the Porsche are still going at it. The Corvette would end up in the back of the number 77, and then the number 77 just retaliated, basically spinning the Corvette, which the 77 would get a penalty for that. GTD Pro is just a mess, quite frankly. But yeah, this race was, particularly the end of GTD Pro, was just a fucking nightmare. And the Corvette on Porsche Violence reminds me of Laguna Seca in 2008, 2009. Jan Magnussen and Jörg Bergmeister, final corner. This was back during the Flying Lizard days. Jan got into the back of Jörg just completely on accident, and Jörg decided that putting the Corvette in the pit wall was the thing to do there, and it was actually kind of a thing. But yeah, this was bananas. But we talked about it last episode, and I said I would eat my hat if the BOP adjustments worked. The manual BOP adjustments worked. So do we think they did?
I don't know. Like, for me, it's just really hard to tell because Detroit is such a chaotic track that half of what even goes into winning at Detroit isn't even so much a BOP. It's just your ability to keep your car out of the walls and not become a part of a Long Beach-esque track blockage, which there wasn't any of that. There wasn't a Long Beach track pileup happening this weekend or last weekend, whatever. So that wasn't so much of a thing, but I don't know. And then you have BMW, which they got hit with BOP adjustments, I guess, for the worse. And it's they're so incompetent half the time that it's again, BOP doesn't even matter, so I can't even tell. I don't know. I would say maybe. I really don't know. I can't even really tell.
My verdict inconclusive for me. I would hazard a guess. I would say maybe, because interestingly, even when the number 7 was floundering towards the end, in theory, it should have been there to be picked off by the BMWs, and they just couldn't. And so that's why I go, well, maybe. But it's,
I mean, a Porsche car was still on the podium. It just wasn't the championship leading car.
And I mean, I guess there's that too. Yeah, again, like you said, it's tough to tell. Because Detroit, particularly this newest circuit, it's just chaotic. And so it makes appraising these changes a bit difficult. So it's, like I said, I would hazard a guess and say maybe, because
it's also not a long race either. It's a sprint race, so you can't really tell what's going on long-term pace because the race is only 100 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So yeah, I guess we'll have to just kind of wait and see moving forward. I don't know if there's going to be any further BOP adjustment or if they'll kind of leave it be for now. Part of me kind of hopes that they leave it. But we will, we'll just have to see what happens. But the good news is that saves me from having to dine on any number of one of the hats that I have. So I'll take it as a small win. But moving on to IndyCar. So, in some ways, the more things change, the more things stay the same, because even for all of the hullabaloo with the 500, we would basically start off with Stingray Rob and the barriers. So that's business as usual then, right? And it gets odder still. Well, I say odder still because Will Power being a bit ragey in the cockpit is also not really new. This man has been doing this for 20 years now. But at any rate, the latest victim of Power's wrath would be Kyle Kirkwood, who actually had a damaged floor due to basically getting rammed and pushed down that short straight. Although oddly enough, like neither race stewards didn't care, and neither of these guys gave a shit. Kyle Kirkwood made a joke on Twitter about it. IndyCar's fucking weird. I don't understand it. Yeah, just nobody gave a shit. So fine, I guess. During qualifying, Nolan Siegel would have some kind of engine problem during Group 2 quali. Newgarden wouldn't make it to the Fast 12 due to getting intimate with the wall. Kirkwood would hit the wall during Fast 6 and would break a toe link. David Malukas was on fucking fire during the quali sessions, but ultimately it would be Colton Herta on pole. And for as much as it is, prior to Detroit, it was the BMWs on pole just to not convert that into a win. In some ways, Colton has kind of a similar record. So let's see. Does he do it again? That's called foreshadowing, kids. But any race, good race or not?
I mean, it was, again, okay. I mean, it was, again, a lot less chaotic than it has been, like, previously, like, since last year. Last year was very chaotic. This year was a little bit more calm. So I would say it was okay, again, with the IMSA race.
Yeah, I would say it's okay. I didn't actually enjoy this year as much as last year. Last year, because of it was on and off, like these light rain showers during last year's race, which made it actually a fascinating race from a strategy perspective. But because it was clear and dry, well, for the race, to be fair, right before IMSA quali, it rained. It rained buckets. But as a result, I don't think this year was quite as interesting personally, but still overall it was fine. The start was pretty clean, pretty well behaved. We would get the first full course yellow. Was Rosenquist spinning and ending up in the barriers at T8, which somehow Marcus Armstrong was involved. Then on that same short straight where Kirkwood got a bit of an assist from Will Power, Scott McLaughlin would send Nolan Siegel into fucking low Earth orbit on the restart. Which McLaughlin was given a stop go for avoidable contact for that. Speaking of which, we have a bit more to say about this. We'll follow up with this later. we would get another caution for Devlin DiFrancesco losing a right rear. Rinus VK would retire due to some mechanical issues. Rasmussen would end up in the wall, although admittedly it was just light contact after pitting. But we would have another caution for Ilott ending up in buried in the wall. But apparently there was a loose wheel. Which, speaking of which, that was kind of a theme this race. We had a lot of folks with loose wheels, which I thought was kind of interesting. And as it turns out, the only way to stop Alex Palou from winning a race, just have him get punted. Unfortunately, the offender here was David Malukas, who got a stop-go penalty for avoidable contact as a direct result of this. And it was the same thing, and it was another restart punt. But we would have a yellow for a fucking massive accident with Louis Foster and Felix Rosenquist on the backstretch. It seems like Foster had a suspension failure of some sort, which is what caused him to collect Felix at big speeds, because it's worth noting that this was on the fastest part of the circuit. Foster was okay. He got out of the car on his own power. Felix was taken away via stretcher, though he's totally fine. The race would end up being red flagged with about 13 to go due to the significant damage to the tire barriers. We would have it would end up being a Kirkwood victory with a damaged front wing, which is very Palou-esque, because Palou did that at the Nashville Street Circuit a couple years ago, if I remember correctly, right?
I think so.
With a fucked up front wing. So it's just like, Jesus Christ, what are these front wings made out of? The fact that they're obviously fucked and it's fine. But as a result, it means that Honda would basically sweep the weekend right under the nose of what is still, for now, GM's world headquarters. It's worth noting that it won't be for that much longer. With General Motors set to move into the old Hudson's site. And if you're familiar with the downtown Detroit area, you'll know where that is. But because IndyCar does not know how to be normal for 5 seconds, it would be post-race where everything would kind of kick off. So, starting of which, apparently, IndyCar no longer employs the 3 blind mice to do post-race tech inspection. Because Santino Ferrucci, the number 14 AJ Foyt entry, was found to be under the required tolerance of driver ballast weight, which is a very long-winded of saying that the car was underweight, and would forfeit 25 championship point for both driver and entrance points, and the loss of the bonus point for leading a lap, and the team was fined $25,000. So the good news is now, the booth can stop acting like Ferrucci's P2 was like this act of God or something. No, the car was just underweight. Also underweight, and you still can't fucking win. Congratulations. But
also, he wasn't even doing that well during the race. I mean, for most of the races, he was behind his teammate Malukas up until the end.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing. Not to get too off topic and sidetracked here, but everybody's talking, especially in the aftermath of the P2 before we found out that the car was underweight. Everybody was like, Ferrucci has to be considered for one of the, big team drives down, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, Ferrucci has been getting his ass kicked by David all season. like if you're gonna pick anybody out of that team to graduate to one of the quotes big teams, it would be David, not Ferrucci. Like, I don't know. Am I off base here?
No.
But yeah. But remember how I mentioned the incident between Scott McLaughlin and Nolan Siegel? Um 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 Tony Kanaan decided that he felt the need to insert himself here. Um because to be fair, Scott said that he just misjudged it, which to be fair seemed like that was a thing because it was literally a carbon copy of what David would end up doing to Alex later in the race. So, but saying that Nolan just braked a bit earlier than he was expecting. Um, um, but Tony quote tweeted McLaughlin saying, misjudged last week in reference to McLaughlin's crash on the formation lap. Misjudged this week. At least you get a weekend off to square that away. He said, I came looking for your team principal to have a chat, but I couldn't find him. Oh, wait. Ellipsis. Which McLaughlin responded saying, our team principals usually aren't on Twitter during the race, but you've got my phone number, mate. Which even Nolan briefly threw his hat in the ring into this one, saying, can always give me a call instead of your imparting your wisdom through Twitter hashtags. But Nolan did not stand on business and deleted the reply, which is kind of a bummer because I think that Nolan's right. But like, I don't know how you feel about this exchange between, specifically Scott and Tony, but like, I don't know. I just think this is fucking stupid and infantile from like everybody involved.
I mean, kind of. Like, I like drama, I'm not gonna lie. I do like drama, okay?
Yes, I
I
know.
like drama, I like mess. But same damn time, these are grown ass men, okay? And freaking Tony Kanon, his big ass age of like fucking 50 something,
Mm-hmm.
40 something. I don't know how fucking old he is. He's old as fuck. I I think it's just funny that he's on Twitter like beefing with people when it's like, I don't know, the adult thing to do would just be to like talk to somebody afterward, after the fact, about it and hash it out. Um, since it wasn't intentional, it was all a mistake. Nobody was. It wasn't a malicious move by McLaughlin. So I don't know. It's like on one hand, so yeah, it's funny to see it. It's funny seeing people like. It's funny anytime to see like racing people in the motorsports world like publicly beefing on social media. It's very funny, but at the same damn time, like to some extent, it does get to a point where it's like, okay, well, like go to therapy or something, resolve your issues like a real adult, because you're all real adults. Well, not
Yeah.
really.
Well, obviously not. But yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, and to be fair, Scott and Tony have been going back and forth for what at this point feels like about a year now. Um, I seem to think Scott made some comments about the driver's seat musical chairs that McLaren did last year, which annoyed Tony. Which again, Scott wasn't wrong. The McLaren team last year was just a shit show. With its sort of carousel of drivers, kind of going in and out. But yeah, but it's like Scott said, goofed it, sorry. It's like, and And I understand to some extent, again, I've been watching IndyCar for a very long time. Tony, to some degree, is kind of like this, but also at the same time, you are 50 fucking years old. He turned 50 earlier this year. Well, actually, no, technically late last year, because I think his birthday is actually in December. And it's like you are a team principal. I understand being fiery and, passionate about racing and being passionate about your job. I understand being annoyed that, your driver got punted, when he was running pretty well. All of those things are perfectly valid and understandable. But it's like immediately farming, Twitter for beef. It's just like, what's wrong with you? It's like you have a job to do that is significantly more important than feuding with drivers. Again, it's like, Tony, you're a team principal now. You are not a driver anymore. You haven't been for quite a while at this point.
I mean, that's probably really the thing about it is like if it was two drivers going at it, it's like, yeah, I don't care. I think that's whatever. Like, plus I've seen that happen several times before. It's funny, and usually it happens, but then like eventually it blows over. Like everybody cools off. They figure it out. They hash it out. They talk it out away from the track, and it's usually whatever. It's fine. But like, it's just really odd to see like team personnel or people, at least team personnel that have like higher up roles, beefing with other competitors, other drivers on social media of all things. I just don't think I've seen that, except in IndyCar. I mean, even in NASCAR, I don't think I've seen that, which is kind of funny because I feel like NASCAR would be the only other series that I would see that happen at, and I haven't so far. Knock on wood, it might happen, but
yeah, it's just if Stenhouse is anything to go by, they're just too busy arguing with journalists, which is also stupid as fuck, but never mind. But yeah, it's just like I said, it's wild. It's like, dude, it's like at some point you have to kind of decide to
so
be
technically he didn't even really have nothing to do with it anyways. Like I understand you work for McLaren and you're team principal, you're a driver coach. I don't actually know what his actual role is at McLaren, but either way, he's not a driver.
No.
He stopped being a driver last year at the Indy 500. Like he doesn't drive full time, even if he does drive. So it's like the incident wasn't even in between. Like it had nothing to do with you. You were not involved in the incident. So I get you're frustrated because it was your driver, but at the same time, it happened between two people on track. You were not on track when that happened. So I think really this has nothing to do with him. Yet he still hit it somehow.
Yeah, and it's and it's the other thing. It's like, you want to sit here and shit on the fact that because Penske, of course, if you've been paying any attention to F1 or not F1 news, I'm so hard coded for bullshit in that series. It's almost reflexive. If you've been paying attention to IndyCar news, then you'll know that basically Penske racing operations on the IndyCar site, they cleaned house recently. And, it's like you want to sit here and go, oh, I was looking for your team principal. Oh, wait. It's like Tony, you are throwing stones from a glass house. It's like, what about the fact that all of the funding that is getting poured into McLaren's IndyCar operation, the fact that that team perpetually tries to position itself as kind of, a super team on the likes of Ganassi and Andretti, and yet you guys are beefing with Fleets and, Dale Coynes for like the fourth year in a row. It's like, I think you should be worried about that first and foremost, why this team perennially underperforms.
I mean, unfortunately, McLaren is like a mid-team IndyCar team.
It is.
At on their best days, they're able to pull out top 10, top 5 results. But on a bad day, yeah, they're at the back with AJ Foyt, Dale Coyne. Hell, even sometimes ECR is doing better than them, which ECR, kind of a poverty team, just like RLL. It's like you're being outperformed by like, again, poverty teams and back markers.
Yeah, it's like that's a bigger thing. It's like I feel part of me genuinely feels so bad that Sam Schmidt sold his team just for it to get worse. I'm like, at least when he still owned this team, when it was still, Schmidt Peterson Racing, and later the Schmidt the Arrow partnership towards the end. I'm like, at least that was still a genuinely competitive team. And that's why everybody thought that when he basically sold to McLaren, that team would take the next step to become one of the big fish in IndyCar. And it's just not happened. And it's wild that this team has all of these resources and continues to underperform every single year. I remember us talking about how Rossi leaving McLaren was going to be kind of a downgrade, but in actuality, no, not really. It ended up being more of a lateral move than anything else. But yeah, it's just, like I said, this just is so dumb. And I think Nolan not wanting to feed into this mess, and I think that was why he deleted his reply. But that being said, Nolan was the one that got punted, and I would have liked to have seen him advocate for himself a little bit more in all of this.
I mean, yeah, because you don't really want people to like push you around when you're racing. Like, of course, you don't want to be out there making enemies with people, but at the same time, you do got to stand on business. You can't let people push you around or let people perceive you as like a pushover or whatever. But at the same time, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm one of the people where it's like, if somebody's not going to apologize for what they did, then that means that they don't feel like what they did was wrong. They don't feel like they were in the wrong. So, like, I don't know. Sure, would it have been nice for Scott to apologize for it? Because, again, he was in the wrong. He did get a penalty for it. At the same time, I don't think you can necessarily ask somebody to apologize, because I feel like if you're asking somebody to apologize for something, then the apology means nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and you're talking about, two men, both in Scott McLaughlin and frankly in Tony Kanaan, who are fucking allergic to the concept of accountability. Because it's like, let's be real. I remember when Tony Kanaan was a fucking menace in the IndyCar series. And getting that man to actually own up to that stuff, never in a fucking million years. That's part of why I think this is also so funny. It's like,
which is interesting because on the other hand, when David basically punted Palou, he owned up to it. Like, he made a tweet saying, yeah, that was my fault, But I guess when it comes to this,
yeah, absolutely not. Yeah, and that is, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to, because yeah, literally, David quote tweeted the clip from Fox, and he was just like, nope, no intent, no bad blood, talking about in reference to him basically finishing runner up to Alex at the 500. He was like, I fucked up, I misjudged it. He's like, I'm sorry. And it's like, and it's wild how you could have basically a carbon copy accident and yet have two completely different responses. David being like, yep, my bad, that was absolutely on me. And then, Scott using it as an opportunity to be snarky and a shill, frankly. And Tony being...
This is why this is even crazier, in my opinion, also, is because, like, this whole thing could have actually been, like, to be fair, might not have even been having this discussion really right now. If this whole thing could have been wrapped up, done, figured out, hashed out, before they even left Detroit, okay? Because technically, I don't know if I was a racing driver. I'm not, obviously, but if I was and I knew I did something wrong, I wronged somebody, I accidentally damaged their car or whatever. Either way, it was a mistake I made. Okay, I'd probably go up to them after the race, find them, be like, look, that was my fault or whatever. And boom, it's done. They'd either accept my apology, not accept my apology, whatever. Most people will accept your apology if you just tell them, this is what happened, I'm sorry, and whatever, and you're genuine about it. Most people are like, yeah, sure, I understand. I don't know why they couldn't have just done that. I don't know why that was so difficult for Scott to do, why Tony was involved. Like, we could have skipped this whole Twitter beef. We could have not even had any of this happen if they had simply just, if he had just done that, honestly. And not to be telling anybody what they can and can't do with their own lives, but these are two grown men who also have kids, by the way. So it's like, what kind of example are you setting for your kids? Okay, that you just go about doing, wronging people, stepping on people's toes, and you don't apologize, you don't admit that you're wrong, because not everybody, you're not always going to be right. You're going to have times where you're wrong and you make mistakes. So you have to just learn how to apologize to people and move on. So it's like, what kind of example are y'all setting for your kids? I mean, I'm not trying to tell anybody how they can and can't be a parent, but if I was a parent, that's not the type of example I'd want to be setting for my kids.
Yeah, and I completely agree with everything you just said, really. I don't, like I said, like I said, why apologizing was just this goddamn difficult. I don't get it. Because, like I said, David literally did just that. He's just like, okay, my bad. I fucked up. Sorry, Alex. And it was fine. Everybody moved on with their life. But yes, why we have, again, two very grown men, arguing on, Twitter about this is just, it's ridiculous. And and it's something actually, it's funny you say that. It's something my dad and I actually talk about kind of a lot. It's, always nice, it's, romantic, but, the concept that, you can, especially in like, sporting events, you can have, decent guys, good guys who, who win, who do well, who succeed. But, it feels like so often in motorsports, it's just, all of the fucking shittiest people imaginable. And, and I understand, the whole thing, people contain multitudes, and, frankly, most of us are, deeply flawed in some regard or another. I get that. That's very much a thing. But yeah, it's just one of those things, when you talk about, setting an example, again, for, two guys who have, children, it's just like, if your kid did this, you would blow your top. Yet here you are. So yeah, I don't I don't know. I don't understand it. But honestly, I find it just troubling that, like I said, we're having this discussion in the first place. But yeah, but with that, I guess moving on. So next on the calendar, well, for IndyCar, it's gonna be Gateway. And then for broader stuff, it's Le Mans is what kicks off our string of 24-hour races. So I'm genuinely hyped. So I purposely cleared my schedule the weekend of Le Mans so that way I can, if I decide I want to, I can be up for the full 24. I know sometimes you stay up for this stuff. Do you have any plans on doing so this year?
I don't usually stay up for the whole thing. Like, I think the latest I stay up is like 3 in the morning for these things. I usually
Okay.
don't smoke the whole time.
Okay. But yeah, I'm certainly gonna try to, barring something goofy and untoward that requires my attention. Because it's usually Daytona and Le Mans are usually the two I stay up for. I usually don't bother with Spa nor the Nordschleife. Although
Well,
last year I
if
actually,
Spa and well, first of all, if Lamar is like again like the 4 hour safety car period, it's not gonna be worth stay up. Because I think I stayed up, unfortunately stayed up for like the entire time it was like a safety car, and even when
hmm
the sun came out, okay, the sun was up, and they still hadn't. Or I guess the sun was up. The sun had already risen, and they still were under safety car, and I was like, okay, you know what, forget it. I had closed my devices, shut off my devices, and I'm like, you know what, forget it.
yeah, that's fair. It was actually very frustrating. To
With the
have,
fog, the Nordschleife, that was
yes,
the worst thing ever.
uh-huh, because that was the one time that I was actually gonna stay up for Nürburgring,
There
and
was
it's
no
just
night racing at all.
no,
None.
none whatsoever. It's just like, okay, it's just a bunch of fucking fog. It's like, okay. It was so deeply frustrating to have that happen. But yeah, no, I'm planning on staying up for Le Mans. Like I said, it would be nice to not have, 24 hours of safety car. That'd be great. But I guess we will well, we'll just have
It
to see what
depends on
happens.
weather and how well behaved people are gonna be.
Yep, absolutely. Um but I'm gonna hold out hope that we have a uh a good race, a good Le Mans. Um
I mean, looking at the BOP, I don't know.
yeah, well, yeah, there's that.
It's I
um but yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, but I suppose with that, well, this has been an episode of Chicanery. We have been your hosts, Danny and JT, and thanks for listening. And until next time, everybody.
NASCAR fans, warmer weather, roaring engines, and victory lane vibes. It must be NASCAR season. Picture this: you've had an adrenaline packed day at the track, now you're kicked back by the pool, soaking up the sun, and you're looking to sip something that hits just right. Meet the Ounce of Hope's 5 milligram THC seltzer, a refreshing alcohol free way to unwind with a light buzz and zero hangover. At just $5 for a 16-ounce can, it's the only THC seltzer of its kind on the market and the best deal you'll find. Cheaper than a cocktail at your favorite pit stop. Whether you're winding down after the race day or vibing on a breezy summer night, choose from 4 delicious flavors: peach, cherry, lime, or berry. Ounce of Hope is the trusted cannabis company in Memphis and in all of Tennessee. Ounce of Hope ships federally legal THC and CBD products nationwide and also offers a variety of edibles like mushroom gummies, chocolates, and Rice Krispie treats, plus topicals and oils, all grown and crafted in Memphis, Tennessee for quality you can trust. So, if you're over 21, ready to elevate your race weekend or any weekend, check out ounceofhope.com and use promo code VICTORY for 20% off your first purchase. That's ounceofhope.com, promo code VICTORY for 20% off.